This program is produced using the resources of Public Media Network in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Learn more at publicmedianet.org.
Welcome to Connecting Communities, a podcast about the environment where we live, work, and play in Kalamazoo. I'm one of your co-hosts, Joe Byers.
I'm Bella Baez, another co-host, and we're here with Confections with Convictions. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Jennifer Faketty.
And I'm Dale Anderson.
Welcome. We're glad that you're here. So let's start out by telling us exactly what Confections with Convictions is.
Sure, it's a chocolate shop in Kalamazoo that specializes in handmade, fair trade, organic chocolates. The mission of the shop is the core to what we do. We make chocolates so we can hire people rather than hiring people so we can make chocolates. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. When I started it, I was a counselor working with young people in the juvenile court system, and I saw how few of the kids I was working with were able to really change their lives very much because the systemic issues of having, if you got a couple of felonies on your record, getting jobs, getting rental housing, whatever, really barriers to doing that. And if you can't get an easy job, the likelihood of going back to selling drugs on the street is pretty high because those are the employers who don't care what your record is. So I wanted to employ young people with felony records to give them a foundation to build a life that wasn't on the road to prison. Most of my working life, I've been a licensed builder, and I had done an off-the-grid solar home project. And so my initial inspiration was to start a business doing solar photovoltaic panel installation, thinking that would be a job skill set that even a young person who might not graduate high school could still earn a decent living doing, and it was a forward-thinking enterprise. I spent a couple of years trying to put together that business and learn about photovoltaics. And then I ran into child labor law, which if I've had any sense at all, I would have looked into at the beginning. And under the age of 18, you can't be on a roof or a ladder or use power tools. So pretty much every aspect of doing solar panel installation fell aside. I had purchased a box of fancy chocolates online for my wife around that time. And because I play with words, I said, well, maybe I could do chocolates instead. I could call it Confections with Convictions, because you'd be hiring kids with convictions. It should have been Confections with Adjudications, actually, but it doesn't have quite the ring. Just a dumb joke, but it stuck in the back of my head, and a couple of months later I started thinking it had possibilities, and I bought a property on Crosstown Parkway near Burdick and spent almost 2 years gutting and remodeling the building and making it into a chocolate shop and a bakery at the time. Was in the back, and we were in the front with a chocolate shop, and December of 2010 opened as a chocolate shop. So we've been there for almost 15 years. Jennifer has a vision of having a recovery house for women, and she was intrigued with having this business take over the mission of hiring people with barriers to employment, and thought that maybe this shop would be a good employment opportunity for the women who might work in her future recovery house. And so a couple of years ago, she purchased the business and now is the owner. And so now, along with young people with barriers to employment, we're hiring women in recovery.
What a great transition and so important and needed. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that vision?
So that vision started many years ago with a girlfriend of mine. We wanted to help women in recovery because I'm in recovery and she's in recovery. And we see how I mean, housing is still hard. It was hard then. But safe housing and safe workplaces are hard for women in recovery. We had a vision about opening a recovery house, and we wanted the women to have a safe place to work. We saw a model, Thistle Farms in Nashville. They have a program, they have like a 2-year program, and they started with just one house. And they have now many houses who house women who have been trafficked. And they have 3 different businesses that are connected with those houses. They have a cafe, they have a retail store, and they have a store that makes candles and lotions. We actually went down there and checked them out, and thought that was something that we wanted to do. How we didn't know how we were going to do that. What are we going to do? Make candles up here? We did not know.
Right.
But it was the shop. It was 3 years before. Let's see, 2023 is January 2023 is when we did our switch. So I bought the shop in 23, but it was 3 years before that I went to the shop randomly to look for a friend, and because my friend was working there. And so I met Dale then, and then I decided to volunteer, and then I wasn't really doing anything, and it was Christmas time almost, and I had put in an application at the post office and was kind of waiting for that, and they're like, well, you're really good at this, do you want a job? And I was like, yeah, sure, you know. And and Dale, I think at that time, weren't you already looking for you were kind of already doing some planning, right, and kind of looking for a succession plan?
Yeah, I wanted the business to go on. I'm 72 now. Sooner or later, I'll want to do something else, and I wanted to have the mission go on after I was gone.
Yeah, so we kind of started talking about that, and it stuck. And so that's how that started. I worked for the post office for 3 years while we were trying to kind of figure it out, like when can I commit, when can my partner, that was going to be my partner in all of this, commit, and then finally it just happened one day. Like, we just did it. We just sat down and talked about it and just made it happen. So that was, January. That was in December of 22. I quit the post office and came back to the shop for full time just to help through the Christmas season. And then in January, we made the switch. So it's been 2.5 years that we've been doing this. And so luckily, I'm grateful that Dale has remained to mentor me in chocolate and small business, because neither of those I knew anything about when I got there. It's just completely a leap of faith, if that's what you want to call it. Yeah.
How cool.
Do you guys offer any support to your employees, like outside of just providing them a job? Are there any mechanisms of support you offer them currently?
So I have not offered any support outside of work, other than recovery based. That is because I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for 11 years, and it just so happens that I started hiring people that were in recovery. So some of us talk recovery in there, and so that's what I can do for my part, because that's where my experience lies.
When the shop opened up and was hiring young people, we had people coming in volunteering to do literacy assistance, because a lot of the kids that we were working with were behind in school or thinking of dropping out. So we did some more sort of on-site services like that, helping kids study for their GEDs and that sort of stuff, and had a pretty good pool of volunteers. In recent years, we've learned that it's not legal to have volunteers in a for-profit business, so we can't engage volunteers anymore. So that's too bad, but we did it for a number of years and are still not in prison, so that's good.
Locally? Yeah, so just my part is recovery. Like, I can't hire or like do any kind of financial assistance or anything like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's just recovery for my part.
But you were talking about having people in recovery having a safe place to work. That, you know, I've been around addicts and alcoholics most of my life, and know about recovery. I never really thought about that, having a safe place for someone in recovery to work, you know, because, you know, there's so much temptation being somebody that isn't in recovery, you know, in the real world. You know, it's crazy to think that you're not crazy. It's amazing to think that you're providing, you know, that.
Yeah.
And there's other people who are doing the same thing, right? There's a place in Ann Arbor who is hiring, and I reached out to them. I think it was shortly after, I mean, it must have been in 2023 to maybe collaborate with them. And they're hiring, everybody is recovery, or out of prison and in recovery there. It's not just about the safe place to work. As far as drugs or drinking is concerned, it's also about the women, you know.
Yeah.
So when I came into recovery, I didn't like women. I wasn't going to ask for help. I had my walls up, and being surrounded, when I finally like hit the bottom that I had to hit in order to ask for help from a woman, and that woman and became a lifeline, right? And the other women in that group of women kind of showed me how to, like, I was accepted by women, and I got to have, like, started to learn how to have relationships with women and be able to trust women, right? So women in recovery are, like I said, vulnerable when you're first coming in. You got your walls up. You don't want anybody to help you a lot of times, or you might get help from men. That doesn't really always work out very well, right? So it's kind of, from my experience, helpful to have women helping women. And it's amazing when it first started happening, where I would like walk through the shop, and there would be a woman, like two women sitting at a table, stainless steel table, and they're both working, and one of them is telling the other one her story. And I excitedly would go to Dale and say, it's happening right now. There's healing going on, right? Because that is what it's about. It's about healing. That's the bottom line underneath for all of these things, right? All of the addiction, the crises, the traumas, there needs to be healing happening. And so that's how that happens sometimes. And it's pretty cool to watch when that's happening.
So I did go on the website and look at some of the stuff that you all have there, and I was really impressed with the sustainability, and since this is an environmental podcast, and the fair trade stuff that you all use, organic ingredients, all that stuff is really cool. If you want to tell us more about.
Yeah. When I first started studying about chocolate, the first class I took was an online class from a place called the Ecole Institute in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I did a lot of research for the class and discovered that something like 70% of the chocolate that's consumed in the world comes from two countries in West Africa, the Ivory Coast and Ghana, and both of which have long histories of using child labor. And I thought, I'm helping kids here and enslaving kids in the Ivory Coast. How does that balance out? So looked into how do you not do that. I always get choked up about this. Sorry about that. And fair trade was the only standard that was out there that had some guide rails on on the product sourcing, so that the farmers who are growing chocolate or cacao beans that are fair trade certified, they're being overseen to make sure that there's not child labor involved or slave labor involved, that they're getting a higher than market price for their beans, that some profits going back to those communities for clean water, education, health care. So we're committed to using only fair trade chocolate, and it happens happily that all that chocolate that we get that's fair trade is also certified organic. So we've got a couple of different oversight outside agencies that are looking at that supply chain and making sure that it's equitable and safe and fair and all that stuff. So that's, we do that. We also go to the farmer's market all the time, and if Mitchell's organic blueberries locally, or what we put into our chocolates, and fresh fruit, and we buy maple syrup and honey and other things locally sourced and organic as we can, and try to also use other local. Right now have a number of things, I think 4 truffles that have beer from Bell's Brewery in them, and 3
wines.
3 things that have bourbon and vodka and rum from the Kalamazoo Still House, a local distillery. So we try to engage other local partners to buy local as much as we can.
Reason Ron's Beans Coffee, and one truffle we've got, or one caramel. We've got Water Street Coffee in 2 items. Yeah, we've got local wines in 3 different truffles. So we love to collaborate with we've got a cheese from the Cheese Lady. We've got a honey chev in one of our, and I can't believe I totally was going to bring chocolate and I totally forgot. I'm so sorry.
I was actually
Darn
going
it.
for that. But
I was
because it looks so delicious. You go online and there's all these different options, and vegan and, gluten-free and,
Yeah, I am so sorry, because I was totally going to bring it, and then I had like a sideways moment before I left the shop. But yeah, so we love working with our neighbors.
Yeah.
We love collaborating with local people.
That's really important.
Do you guys have items that are like particularly popular or like, customer favorites? And what are they? You seem like
Yes, we do. So the truffles and the caramels are really what it is for most people. And of those, it's like, okay, if somebody says, can you pick a box with some of the favorites? Yes. Do you want dark milk and white chocolate? Do you want truffles and caramels? Like Dale's favorite is a 72.5% Peruvian, Venezuelan. Oh, that's
another one that's got.
We're
trying to get soy lecithin out of our chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
And the Venezuelan chocolate, we love it,
Oh,
but it's the
so
only
good.
one of our dark chocolates that has lecithin in
Yeah.
it.
So that 72.5%, it's got bits of toasted cocoa nib. That's Dale's favorite, and that is the most popular. Dark truffle. There's an Irish cream, so it's got Irish cream liqueur in it. That's the most popular milk. And then probably the cheesecake is still holding up the most popular white truffle. There's a maple butter crunch that is a caramel dipped in milk chocolate, and that is made with maple syrup from like Goebel's, from Jack and Jill's. Yeah. So those are probably the top ones that I sell. But then I always, Like I have my favorite go-to is the cherry. I'll always put that in a box. That's from cherries from Smelter's Farms up north. Yeah, there's the hazelnut crunch. Everyone loves that. I always put that in a box. You got to throw a little booze in there too, you know.
The online assortments is actually a very narrow portion of what we actually have. I think we have a little over 100 items in our case, truffles and caramels at any given time. And we have truffles and caramels. We make chocolate bark, dark milk, and white. We make chocolate covered fruits, dried fruits of various sorts. We do chocolate covered almonds, dark milk, and white with freeze dried raspberries and hazelnuts and macadamia nuts. We make these things we call clusters, which are sort of like muffin cups full of chocolate that may have a caramel center or cashews blended into it, or Rocky Road peanuts and vegan marshmallows.
Yeah.
We dip pretzels, both the sort of figure eight style pretzels in chocolate, and put sea salt on them. We dip rod pretzels in caramel and then in chocolate. We make shortbread cookies dipped in chocolate.
Fudge now. The fudge is new.
We make our own peanut butter cups and pistachio butter cups and tahini cups with maple syrup and a dried tart cherry.
Marzipan.
Yeah, so we've got
There's so
tons
much
of things
going on.
there going on in the
So
shop.
we need to come into the
Yeah.
shop.
You do need to come in, and first timers in the shop get a free sample out of our case.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely head in. There's a lot going on in that case. People are usually overwhelmed with the flavors because there's so many.
I'm curious, how long did it take you guys to feel confident as like chocolatiers?
I still don't feel confident as
Okay.
a chocolatier.
And chocolate is a little fussy. You know, there's sort of the art to it, and there's also the science of it. Cocoa butter, the fat in chocolate, can crystallize in 6 different formations, and only one of those formations gives you that shiny, snap, silky feel. And so you're having to temper the chocolate when you're making a chocolate bar, which we also make, or coating a truffle or a caramel. You need to have the chocolate in good temper, so it's got a shiny shell with a crisp snap and a silky mouthfeel. So and temperature and humidity and barometric pressure and who knows what else
Water activity in in the truffle.
make a difference in how all that turns out. So you're sort of learning all the time, and what worked yesterday sometimes isn't working today.
Yeah.
So it's a constant learning process.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it now for, about 18 years, 3 years prior to opening the shop, just in my home kitchen. And I'm still learning stuff every day. But yeah, you get more and more confident, even though you still have results that go left sometimes.
But why, Dale? Why? Why is this
Exactly.
happening? That's a typical question I have. There's some science that I don't know about with sugar. And sugar is different. I mean, chocolate is its own thing, and sugar work is completely different. So there's a lot to learn there, too.
Have you guys felt a lot of support from the community of Kalamazoo since?
Yes.
And what does that look like for you guys?
This is another place where I get choked up, but oh boy, maybe I should let you talk. I think it's great. We've met lots of people who want to support the people we're hiring and come there specifically to purchase stuff because it's a way that they can help that population. How else do you go about doing that? Mm-hmm. So it reminds me when recycling first started happening in Kalamazoo, and it's like, yes, now I can do this and do something good for the environment. I can recycle cans and jars or whatever, and it gave people an outlet for their environmental hopes or whatever. And this also gives people an outlet to love people, to help their communities. So that's super sweet. And so I'd say a good portion of our regular customers are people who are there because they want to support this model of helping people. Also, then they find that they like the chocolates and they come back for that. But there's been just wonderful community support, and I think people have appreciated having a way to make a tangible difference in other people's lives.
You guys have any stories that you could share of people, like some of your employees that, have, had an impact on you or that you've watched grow in a way that you felt was powerful?
You go first, Liv.
Okay, yeah. So when I first opened the shop, I'd spent all my money doing the remodeling and buying equipment and such, so I couldn't hire anybody, so I was running it without employees. But I put the word out about what our mission was, and it was in the paper. And Youth Opportunities Unlimited, which is a program of the Kalamazoo Regional Education Service Agency, KRESA, they had grant money through Michigan Works to place high school aged people in employment opportunities, and they would pay their wages to work in another place if that young person continued to either go to school or work on their GED or do credit recovery. And so Wire, you got a hold of us after seeing the ad or the article in the paper and said that they didn't usually place kids in for-profit organizations, but would be willing to accept kids with felonies because they couldn't find other job placements for those kids. So I said, sure, that would be great. And they brought the first young man here to the shop to see about placing him. And I said, we're sorry, he just has a misdemeanor, but would that be okay? And I said, sure, and I hired him. And the following day they came and said, we've got a young woman who's got 5 felonies and 3 misdemeanors. Would you take her? And I loved it that was the resume that went to the top of the stack. And she was pregnant and living at the Gospel Mission and was working on getting her diploma through YOU. So we hired her in, and she got her GED, I believe. It was the GED and not a diploma, and she went to KVCC while she was working with us and ended up getting her associate's degree, and we did provide some supports for her for that. She ended up going to Western to work on a business degree. In the course of that time, and I don't remember exactly how those things fit together, but we helped her get a job in a local agency, 20-hour-a-week grant-funded job. She was still working 20 hours a week with us. She saw that grant-funded job was going to be ending because the grant ended, so she saw another posting for another 20-hour-a-week job in that agency that was a permanent position, and ended up getting that job. And then she ended up applying for the supervisor of that position, a 40-hour-a-week job, and got that job. So she got her own apartment and was no longer at the Gospel Mission, had her baby, no thanks to us, but moved up in that way and started working with her partner then, finding houses that they could purchase and fix up and flip. And so now she owns 3 rental properties and her own home.
Wow.
So super glad. I mean, she used us as a foundation to make that happen. So that's maybe the plus side of the story. The first young man, at the end of year 1, we sort of went around with our staff and said, so what did you learn this year? What's this year been like for you? That kid had 2 of his best friends shot and killed on the street in Kalamazoo during that year. And he said, so for me, what I got out of this first year is I would have been out there with them if I wasn't here. So I'm alive. Whatever. Yep. Excuse me. he went on, I don't know, he worked in another job after us, and I think maybe after that went on to other things, back into life on the streets a bit. But we got him through that first year. And so very kinds of success, I guess. Yep.
Yeah. Since I've been there, and Dale we've seen and been able to celebrate women getting their first apartment, women moving from getting their first apartment, having to have a cosigner, to being able to renew their lease without a cosigner. Another woman got her own apartment, got a car, and then just got her license last week. So just these basic things that people just need a little support for. They just need a safe place where they can slow down and work and be safe and just figure their stuff out and then move forward completing tasks, you know. And one of our team members right now successfully had completed the Momentum program. She was the one who just got her license. So like they're putting their lives back together, you know, just building slowly but surely, putting their lives back together. It's amazing to watch, and it's heartwarming, and it's exciting to watch them do that and be so excited about, okay, I'm going to go get my take my driver's test. And we're like, okay, you can do it, you know, and then they come back and they've got their license, and it's like, wow. Yeah, it's really cool.
And just being able to provide us a steady, consistent environment that feels safe. You know, to be able to build.
And make money. I mean, like you said, you know, people with felony records or, you know, any kind of record, you know, it's hard to find a job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's something that is, I will say about the work too, and about a lot of times, I know for me, and I've seen other people do it too, we're kind of running in fight or flight. We've been in that for years. And so just to come in and I experience it myself. I'm running, high amount of stress, and then I stop to like do some work, to do some chocolate work, because sometimes I still get to do chocolate work. It's a bonus when Christmas comes around and I get to do some work. So last Christmas I was under a lot of stress. You know, we're super busy during Christmas, which is great, right? But it's real stressful, long hours. And I stopped at a machine to like dip a caramel, and I just started crying because I just really needed to stop for a minute and feel some feelings that I had been just running from and not paying attention to, you know? So to be able to just stop for a minute and just, also the work, when we hire people, it's like, okay, this might be monotonous. This is probably, you could consider this monotonous, or you can just get into a meditative state with it, because you're scooping. You might scoop some ganache out of a bowl, and you might scoop and weigh 80 pieces of ganache, right? Then you're rolling 80 balls of ganache up, and then you're going out and taking them and dipping them into chocolate, 80 dips, you know? So it's like, it's real monotonous, and but it makes you slow down and just stop and feel some stuff for a minute.
Yeah, process.
It's just, like I
Be
said,
like a
it's still,
meditation.
it still gets me, and it's super helpful. It's been real helpful for me, and so I can't imagine that it's not for them also, because we're all in fight. When we come into recovery, we're in fight or flight for sure, and been in it for years and don't even realize, you know, the amount of anxiety that we're actually feeling, because we haven't felt our feelings in 15 years, you know.
I do a lot of gardening with native plants and stuff, but one of the things that we talk about is having soft landings, so butterflies and or caterpillars can complete their life cycle.
Yeah.
So like this is kind of like what you were saying, kind of reminded me of like a soft landing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This place is a soft landing for your folks.
Yeah. And actually our logo is a butterfly.
Oh.
And it's sort of, that sense of a place to metamorphose.
Transformation begins with love.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or I often wear my Thistle Farm shirt, love heals, right? Because
Right.
it does.
It does.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're coming to the end here. Do you all want to, or if there's anything left that you all want to talk about, and then you can tell us where to find you.
Dale,
No, I've
cried enough.
heard enough. Yeah.
It's
That's
really
good.
been amazing.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel about my work too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it just means that you're doing the right thing for the community,
Yeah,
and
and passionate.
Yep. I
Yeah.
think that, we're all given a gift, and it's like our responsibility to use that gift for the betterment of society and our neighbors and our community. So
For
I'm
sure.
glad that you're doing what you're doing.
It's very much about like the ripple effect, just putting the kindness or the compassion out there to one person can change that person's day, minute, life, whatever, and then they can be uplifted to lift up the next person, right? So just doing it on a small level, you're still rippling kindness out into the community, right? Like smiles are contagious. Kindness is, it can be if we make it, if we let it. Yeah. Turn that positive.
So the shop is at 116 West Crosstown Parkway in Kalamazoo. That's sort of it's near the corner of Crosstown Parkway and Burdick, kind of kitty corner from the police station. www.confectionswithconvictions.com is our web address.
We are on Instagram and Facebook also.
269-381-9700 is the number to call.
That's right.
Operators are standing by.
We're there. We are closed. We do take a little bit of time, Sundays and Mondays, but we're open Tuesdays through Friday, 10 to 6, and Saturdays, 9 to 6. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again for coming, and thanks for
Thanks
doing
so
the
much
work.
for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.